I'm guessing that's what I'm understanding. So please clarify that. The timing of this consideration this week and next week in August is coincidental because it was 10 years ago this month in Southwest Niche Park during a KZoo Park summer cinema showing of the movie Frozen that I talked to Bobby Hopewell about this problem of the sidewalk snow removal. So 10 years to a solution, that's efficiency and government for you. Now I did email the commissioners this afternoon my thoughts on this. I do have two concerns. One is, it wasn't mentioned, but we are encouraging people, in addition to removing the snow and ice from the sidewalks, even after you get cleared down to the pavement, we're encouraging them to put salt on the sidewalks. And this runs against what we're trying to do with like the road salt, to not have all that salt running off into lakes like Asylum Lake. People wear these shirts, Michigan, Lake Michigan, salt-free since 1837. Yeah, you did forget about all the road salt. So I want us to rethink the fact that we're going to be encouraging people at a much higher level to be adding more salt runoff. Personally, I don't like walking through the salt. It damages both my shoes and my pant legs, even more when there's wet water. Also, we need to ask, where does the city's authority to compel people to maintain city property end? Okay, so the city wants property owners to mow the curb lawn, city property, snow shovel the sidewalks. What's next? Is the city going to require people to mow the lawns at parks? Attorney Leal, please tell us where the city's power on this ends. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to make a comment on this topic? Seeing no more comments, the recommended action is a motion to offer the ordinance for first reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Hess.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Decker. Discussion, commissioners. All right, lots of good questions. I appreciate that. There's a gentleman on the dais, I'm sure, who could beat me when it comes to time frames, but just taking a moment to reflect on Mr. Messer's comment on 10 years, this is one of the things I was very interested in accomplishing in 2005, which we talked about then, which I believe is 19 years ago. So I got 9 years on you there, and perhaps you have discussed that at meetings prior to that, I'm sure. Yes. So here we are, hopefully offering up a solution to what has been a long-term challenge. And I will say that outside of everything else and what we're talking about, the details here, for those of us that are lucky enough to have property or reside in property during the wintertime, I think shoveling that sidewalk is like it's a public demonstration of saying, I care about the community. That's what it is. I mean, and literally it is, you drive by, it's as obvious as it could be. You have gone out in front and you basically say, I care about the people that are going to walk in front of my house. And I mean, that's a strong statement. And I think, Vice Mayor House, as you reflected, that is a ripple. That is kind of a sense of being engaged with your community that is demonstrated in not a theoretical, but a practical way. So I appreciate that effort. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradle?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney?
Yes.
Commissioner Decker?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next, reports and legislation. City Manager Ritzma.
I do not have an official report this evening, but I do want to take this opportunity to thank the folks that participated, city staff that participated in the Bloomberg initiative. I remember when we first were awarded that, and the hope of innovation and what was to come we're seeing tonight. So I really appreciate the hard work and the great work that was done that will lead to this change. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Manager Ritzma. So now we are to unfinished business. So I've got a little help here in terms of what did we actually do back at our meeting, which seems so long ago, on July 15th. And then what are we talking about doing this evening? So at the July 15th meeting, the following motion was made by Commissioner Pradel and seconded by Vice Mayor Hess. Quote, a motion to adopt ordinances to amend the sections within Kalamazoo City Code, Chapter 36, the traffic code related to overnight parking, meter rates, and operational hours of meters, and adopt a resolution adopting a parking fee schedule for the city of Kalamazoo. That was the motion that was made almost a month ago. So after much discussion, as we all remember, a motion to postpone the item until tonight's meeting was made, seconded, and approved. The pending motion to adopt the ordinances and resolution is carried over until tonight's meeting, which means the item is at the same place as before the postponement, at the point of voting on the motion to adopt. However, staff have broken up the one item from July 15th into 3 items, consistent with suggestions from commissioners. As a result, the pending motion to approve does not correlate to the 3 items on tonight's agenda. So, to move forward with the items as presented on tonight's meeting agenda, the commissioner who made the original motion to adopt the ordinances and resolution, Commissioner Pradel, must request the withdrawal of the pending motion.
Mayor, I ask permission to withdraw my pending motion to adopt.
Thank you so much. We don't need a second or a vote. That's not required at this point. So, commissioners, unless there is an objection, this motion is withdrawn. All right, seeing no objection, City Manager Ritzma, please proceed with item J1.
Adoption of ordinances to amend the sections within Kalamazoo City Code, Chapter 36, the traffic code related to overnight parking, and adoption of a resolution adopting parking fees for the overnight parking permit program for the city of Kalamazoo.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Do you have a staff report planned for this?
Yes, ask Christina to come forward again, and I'm not going to say brief, I'll just say presentation.
Good to see you back, Planner Anderson.
This actually will be brief. I'm not going to repeat everything that we talked about at length about a month ago. I do have a couple slides, 1 to 3 slides for each of our 3 items tonight, just to kind of answer some questions. So the first motion in front of you tonight is to approve a series of ordinances that set up an overnight parking permit system, as well as the resolution that sets the fee for those for that permit. Uh-oh. I don't know what the magic was last time, but there we go. So, overnight parking is already permitted downtown. It's just permitted in our 2 ramps. This adding the ability to use underutilized, actually just not even utilized, space between the curbs of our streets at night is just a new opportunity for parking in downtown. The rate structure is similar to that in the ramps. It's not meant to compete. It's just meant to give choices within the system. And, we talked about setting up the possibility of 2-tiered system for pricing, depending on your location, but those are details of the program that staff will be working out. What's in front of you tonight, really at the heart of it is, setting up through the ordinance changes, the allowance for a permit system, and then establishing the fee for that permit system, which includes not only the monthly permit, but also guest passes, which is pretty common for cities that have a similar system. You want to make sure that there are guest passes associated with it as well.
Thank you very much, Planner Anderson. I presume that you are available for questions from commissioners. Any questions for Planner Anderson on this first item, J1? Seeing none, and I'm waiting You all set? Need another moment? All right, great. Thank you so much. With no questions, now is the opportunity for anyone who is here in the chambers who would like to comment on this item related to overnight on-street parking to come forward and comment on it. You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name and whether you live in the city.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Artema, and I do live in the city of Kalamazoo. I appreciate the work that's been done on this update to the ordinance. We started talking about this a number of years ago. It's another one of those projects that's been out there for a while. The reason I'm here to support this initiative is it allows the ability to add housing downtown without necessarily the cost of new parking. And so it opens the door for potentially some more affordable units and some smaller projects that wouldn't have to have dedicated off-street parking adjacent to or on their own property. And just to put that into context, if you were to build, say, a 6 to 8 unit apartment building in downtown Kalamazoo, right now you would need to, in essence, be located near one of the ramps, the public ramps, or accommodate for those roughly 8 to 12 parking spaces off-site, which means tearing down houses next door or using some of the land to accommodate the storage of those cars, which is about 350 to 400 square feet per space. So I think the ability to take the existing asphalt that's in place right now and is used during the daytime and allocate it to parking overnight is a great opportunity for our city, for our community. It's efficient. Again, it minimizes the need to add parking. There still will be needs for parking off street to accommodate housing, but we have a downtown that's transitioning from an office-based downtown. That parking system was set up for that decades ago. Now the residential population is growing, and some of it's here already and continuing to grow. And one way to help accommodate that growth is to allow for the overnight parking on the streets. I think it also allows for the ability for some of our restaurants and bars downtown to have an option to provide to people to leave their cars downtown on city streets. And I think some of the details of that portion of this program are still to be worked out, along with other details, as Planner Anderson mentioned. But just the concept of being able to start that process and start that conversation is critical. So appreciate the work that's been done on this and excited to see where it could go for growth in downtown Kalamazoo. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to comment on this item at this time? Seeing no more comments, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance and resolution. Is there a motion? So moved. Motion made by Commissioner Cooney.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Pradel. Any further discussion, commissioners? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is item J2. City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of an ordinance to amend the Kalamazoo City Code, Chapter 36-175, related to parking system updates, including the use of technology in system operations and enforcement and operational hours of meters.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma, and welcome back, Planner Anderson.
A couple of details on this next motion in front of you. Again, this is Chapter 36-175. A number of the updates to this ordinance are housekeeping in nature. We have not updated these ordinances in quite some time. Parking and parking management and enforcement have changed leaps and bounds since then. So things like pay stations and kiosks and mobile apps and virtual pay systems, we want to make sure that those are included in our ordinance language. Second major change is the removal of the meters will run between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And instead, we're going to rely on the traffic engineer to set the hours of meter operation based on best practice and study and their knowledge, as well as sign regulation and the number of regulated spaces that exist within downtown. This is what the traffic engineer does now throughout the city and in downtown, except prior to this ordinance change, there was a limitation on meters running from 8 to 5. So that is, it still remains with the traffic engineer to have this be their responsibility. We are just removing that time limit that was listed specifically in the ordinance. And let's talk a little bit about that. So again, code up to date with current technologies and parking management practices. Kind of just the housekeeping item. When we manage timing and pricing in a public parking system, one of the things that we're doing is encouraging parking turnover. You regulate those, and you think about it as a holistic system. So you have ramps where people may stay longer. You have on-street parking that tends to be short and fast. You have surface lots scattered around. And you think about all those things, and you regulate time and pricing to give people choices based on distance to get to a store or restaurant and how much they are willing to pay or if they would like to park for free. So our current practice of meters end at 5 actually translates to, after 3:30, that space is likely full. Because after 3:30, you pay for your 90 minutes, which gets you to 5, or if there's no payment there and it's a 90-minute regulation, you can stay in that space the rest of the evening. You can stay in that space till we start, to the overnight parking, would kick in prior to the approval of the ordinance that you just reviewed. So on one hand, we're encouraging downtown businesses to stay open late. Let's create that active area. We'll have our restaurants open late, have our stores open late. But we're not supporting that with our parking regulations because we're not supporting that turnover. We're not supporting those spaces, a certain percentage of spaces to be available. I included with both this item and the next one some of those parking principles. It's hard to differentiate timing and pricing because they do go hand in hand. But if we do want businesses to stay open later, we need to make sure that we're regulating our on-street parking accordingly. And that is thinking about shifting the time that the meters operate to focus on that turnover later into the evening. There were several questions about implementation last time, and so with both this item and the next one, I do talk about implementation. So the longer hours, the implementation of longer hours, staff proposes that on the Kalamazoo Mall, when we install the kiosks, parking meters later this month, that longer hours will go into operation with those meters on the mall. And it would not go in anywhere else in the near term, but we would undertake a study to understand where else it makes sense to have meters run longer based on, again, the same principles that we're thinking about the mall, businesses that are staying open later, and what does that look like? So we'll embark on a study to understand what that looks like block by block throughout downtown, and would look to make changes next year related to that. And that's all I have for this item.
Thank you again. Questions for Planner Anderson, Commissioner Pradel?
This is just kind of a follow-up. I know Tony Kennedy brought this up during public comment, but I think it is a valid point for people who might be concerned about this or not supportive of some of these changes. I know we already do a lot of after-action review of how it's impacting things and assessing whether it's unintentionally done harm somewhere or something like that. Can you just describe how that process would work and if that's something that we would already be doing
Sure.
to make sure that it's working as planned?
So I think it's safe to say that with any initiative that the city does, city staff do, we are monitoring what's happening and are ready and able to make small changes, big changes to make sure that it's functioning in the way that it was intended to. And this is no different than that. We are regularly in contact with businesses downtown. We have a new, not so new anymore, Megan, downtown business coordinator who is regularly in all the shops talking to everybody. So we, in the anecdotal bucket of how things are doing, right? We are in constant contact with businesses. We participate in the chamber meetings to understand what is going on and how things are working. So, in terms of feedback in the anecdotal way, we have that covered. Park Kalamazoo monitors the parking, right? Many people use the excuse me, Park Mobile and other apps, which allow us to monitor what's going on with the system. We can both monitor it based on, spaces that are being used in a block, right, as well as, revenues and so forth. So we're able to monitor it from a technical standpoint as well. When we go out and think about doing studies in an area, we employ a third method, which is, bodies on the ground, right? Let's go out and look, how many spaces are being used in this block? What does it look like? Have conversations with our parking enforcement team. What are you seeing? And monitor that way.
I know we brought this up before, but just wanted to make sure to share this again. But a concern that I do have is with the potential that the enforcement could be expanded to 8 p.m. Our public meetings start at 5 or 7 p.m. I think maybe like a easy solution would even just be a signage that just is displayed outside of the parking meters outside of City Hall that says something like, when there's a public meeting in place, after 5 p.m. or something, parking is not enforced or something like that. I recognize that there is an inherent risk that somebody might say, hey,
Free parking for the
free
rest of the
parking
night.
if I walk
Yeah.
2 blocks from City Hall. But I think if you limited it to say it's only when a public meeting is taking place, that it would be too hard for people to remember when to take advantage of that. So.
Sure. I will say, as I've been trying to schedule Imagine Kalamazoo 2035 meetings, there is a commissioner board meeting almost every night of the week throughout the whole month. There's just a few days where there aren't meetings. I know they don't all occur in this building, but many of them do. I hear you, and I am more than happy to work with Park Kalamazoo to figure out, and our parking consultant to figure out what the right language is, so we're not inadvertently creating spaces like we do by shutting the meters off at 3:30, and there they are for the rest of the night, and it's free to them. And that is a hard thing that would be hard for us to enforce, right? We don't know if somebody's at the meeting or if they walk downtown. What if they got there a little early and, ran to Rocket Fizz real quick before the meeting? Would we then, would we enforce on them because we said, you must be going to a meeting? Anyway, my point is, I'm sure there's language that we can come up with that makes sense. I don't know what that is right now, but I do understand that is something we need to include in our study when we go block by block through the downtown to figure out what are the hours of those meters and when they should be in operation.
I mean, I think I definitely hear about how many of these public meetings that we have here, but in the same respect, like you described, many of these happen at nighttime, which are, there are many that happen during the day as well, but many of them happen in the evening, and especially the boards and commission that sometimes have the most consequential impact on public citizens and want to share input. And, I think the difference is right now, most of them, if they're happening after 5 o'clock, it's kind of a non-issue, and it will become an issue potentially if it gets pushed till 8 o'clock. So definitely something worth considering.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. So, 3 things. 1, I am in favor of putting those machines in the mall and regulating parking in the mall, increasing making parking instigated there. That's not what's being proposed here. It's much wider than that. I do understand that the issue that we need money to support parking downtown. When I look at the figures about how much it's costing us each year, it's very troubling. But I do have a great concern that with all the roads being dug up now, the discouragement for people coming downtown, that it is not the time to do this. And I have a specific concern about the ordinance 36-175 Part B. Here's what it says. The traffic engineer is authorized to determine, designate, modify, or change by traffic control orders parking zones on city streets and in all parking facilities. My computer just went blank. Okay, there it goes. The days of the week, hours of the day, and the intervals of time for which parking is permissible, as well as for which paid parking is required in each parking zone. I think that's takes us completely out of the picture. That says the traffic engineer can decide we're going to charge people from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, and then has to come back to us. He can say we're going to have no 90-minute free parking on any streets that he wants. And I don't think that's too much power for him. I think these are important issues for the city, and they should be decided by the people who are representing the city up here. So I cannot support the second one because I think it's too general and too vague, and that's not what the ordinance says.
Sure. So the traffic engineer has that responsibility now. The only thing that is limited now is that it says in downtown meters run 8 to 5. The traffic engineer, we've done a lot of updating of parking throughout the city over the last few years. We adjusted many of the signs in the Northside neighborhood, the no stopping standing signs, working with the Northside neighborhood. That was by traffic control order with the traffic engineer. We redid all of the parking in the Vine neighborhood based on their neighborhood plan. There was a desire to add overnight parking and increase the amount of on-street parking, like review all the streets and their width to make sure that we were maximizing the opportunity for on-street parking. All of that was done through traffic control orders of the traffic engineer. And so I just want to be clear that it's not a new responsibility. That's how parking has always been handled. The change that's being proposed here tonight is to allow meters to not require meters to only be 8 to 5. And further, I would say, sure, we could have a staff member that goes out and does a rogue action that says, we're going to have 24-hour meters, right? Or whatever, right? But we operate based on a plan. Excuse me. We operate based on the strategic blueprint for downtown parking, which has experts. We work with Park Kalamazoo to work out parking, to work out rates and timing and where meters go and how we support businesses. And we work to follow that plan. If we didn't, you would certainly hear about it. And, I don't think that action would stand for very long. So I think there's a level of commitment that staff has to work with, to work with plans and implement those plans in a responsible way.
So, Christina, what I hear you saying is we already got the power to do this. So why are you asking us to raise the hours? Because you already have the power to do it, and you don't need us to do this. I read the whole parking overall blueprint, and there's a lot of really good things in there. But this is just one little piece of that, which doesn't take in a lot of the other recommendations that were in there.
Right. Not all of the recommendations in the downtown blueprint for parking require ordinance changes. Right. Some of them are physical changes. So things like review, and Tony brought this up, and I talked to Tony before the meeting too. Review of all of the accessible spaces in downtown, and to make sure that they are signed and located, spread throughout downtown so they're accessible. That's something that the traffic engineer is able to do with signs and study. The blueprint talks about, are there driveways that are no longer being used or they're duplicative, and could we, because everywhere there's a driveway, that means there's no parking in that space and no parking adjacent to the space. Are there driveways that we want to talk with property owners that they're not using that are obsolete to close so we can increase the amount of on-street parking? The blueprint also talks about putting meters in some places and not in others, right? It talks about adjusting pricing. It talked about the permit system. So the blueprint itself has a wide variety of things, not of which all require ordinance changes. And while the traffic engineer does have these powers today, staff does need to come to make this request to you, because the ordinance also specifically says meters will run 8 to 5. So that is required to make that change if we want to allow meters to run later into the evening in certain locations.
I don't find where it says 8 to 5. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just telling you, I understand what you're saying. And I think the overall plan is very good, but I'm not going to vote for it because I think this takes a segment of it, and I think this puts too much power in the hands of one person. And if this person already has this power, then we don't need a vote on it.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooney. Attorney Leal?
Christine, I have a question. Aren't the traffic orders issued by the traffic engineer appealable to a higher body? I don't know if it's the traffic commission or this city commission.
I may rely on Director Baker. We do have a traffic board, but Director Baker will be able to give you exact details.
Oh, could I?
Good evening, Your Honor.
Just a second. Did you have a further
I
question?
would like to
Commissioner?
know when was the last time the traffic board met?
Okay. So thank you very much, Your Honor. Thank you, Attorney Leal. So, two questions on the floor. If I may, I'm going to try to answer the first one. I'll get to yours, Commissioner Cooney. So, first of all, the traffic engineer has the authority to issue those traffic control orders. So those traffic control orders are essentially what's needed to back that sign. The sign is just a metal sign that traffic control orders, posted with the city clerk, and that kind of creates that legal backing for that change in that parking. Those decisions to support the traffic engineer can be supported by that traffic board. And then, and this gets to your question, Commissioner Cooney, that traffic board meets on an as-needed basis when there are specific requests for changes in parking. And so that when those come forward, then that can be taken into consideration by the traffic engineer.
That's not answering my question. I would like to know the last time the traffic board met.
It's been some time. It's been
Like a year?
What's that?
A year?
It may be. I know it's
More.
been longer than that. And the reason for that, Commissioner Cooney, was there is not a specific agenda. The traffic board does not meet regularly. The traffic board must meet if there's an agenda item. And so that last time the traffic board met, we made a lot of changes during COVID to create loading zones and move a lot of parking around downtown. And that was all supported by the traffic board. So the traffic board could meet upon request to consider some changes to a lot of the parking as it sits. So thank you.
Many of the cases that the traffic board, at least during my 7 years here, have been residential requests where neighbors have gathered together and banded together to change parking on their block. Those were most of the cases that were reviewed when the board has met over the last, again, I've been here 7 years.
Commissioner Wilson.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Planner Anderson, to you and your team for taking the time to really remove a lot of the ambiguity that was causing some discomfort last session, especially surrounding implementation. I believe that, pushing this to 25 and some of the other dates that we have in here as well allows us some time to really, review and get through this season of construction at least. So I appreciate that. Another question that I had, so it's my understanding that a lot of this ordinance change is largely meant to offset the, I guess, burden that we're experiencing as a city from the 90-minute parking and the ramps, the free 90-minute parking that is. So I just wanted to hear from you, in the event that this ordinance isn't passed, how likely is it that the 90-minute of free parking in the garages would disappear?
Sure. So let me say something first, and then I'm going to. These changes, the parking plan, the blueprint for downtown parking was done, I think it was in 2019. Mm-hmm. When we did the master plan and we had retail expert Robert Gibbs come from Gibbs Planning Group come and talk to the downtown, all of these changes that are before you tonight were talked about. So the initial impetus for all these changes was the economic health of downtown. It has taken us a little while to get here. We now have a second issue, which is the fiscal health of the system. So these changes are working on both. However, they were initially discussed and proposed purely for the better management of parking in downtown to support business health. The second item, if I could respectfully wait to answer your question on pricing until we get to the next item, which focuses on the resolution that changes the pricing, just to kind of keep things separate, if that's okay.
Sorry,
Yes.
and then secondly, to Commissioner Cooney's point on, not having one particular entity have too much power and ensuring that those checks and balances are in place. In the event that, we were to conduct a review and might want to, challenge that, how would the process work for either this body or anyone else to call the need for a traffic board meeting?
Sure. So applications are made to public services. Requests are made for a case to be heard. And that is how an agenda item is set at the traffic board. If you're taking well, I'll stop there. Yeah.
Further questions? Oh, Commissioner Wilson, are you set for now? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Vice Mayor Hess?
Planner Anderson, are you, you mentioned an annual review, and there's always an annual review. Are you able and willing to present that to this board in like a committee of the whole or something on a regular basis, to kind of dispel the fact that we're just going to do changes willy-nilly, or that this is happening for a reason, and to give us the science behind the reason, because this is math and science that I'm seeing coming before us. But I do believe that we need the ordinance update, but I think the annual update, or biannual even, to let us know what kind of changes are being made and why would be helpful.
Certainly, and we can do that. We come regularly with updates on downtown and what's going on downtown, so we can add the parking system to those presentations, and we can do those at whatever interval the commission would desire.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to add to what Vice Mayor Hess had said. We also, great information could also be sent in our Friday emails.
Just a quick reminder for us, who currently sits on the traffic board? Do you know?
Oh, the staff. There is representatives from planning, public safety, and public services. And who are you? I don't know. No, I don't know who you're pointing at, so you're going to have to say it out loud.
The park.
Oh, yeah, Park Kalamazoo. Right, it's Park Kalamazoo, which previously Central City.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Baker. I apologize.
All right, thank you. Other questions for city staff, Planner Anderson at this point? All right, thank you so much once again. Now is the opportunity for anyone who's here in the chambers to comment on this item J2. If you want to make a comment, please come forward. All right, seeing no one, basically, what are we going to do now is we need to make a motion. So, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance to amend the Kalamazoo City Code?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Hess.
Support, I guess.
Okay, supported by Commissioner Decker. Is that? Motion made by Commissioner Decker, supported by
I'll support it.
Vice Mayor Hess. The old switcheroo there. Okay. Thank you so much. Discussion, commissioners.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I think last commission meeting, we all had questions and we had doubts, and seems like there still could be a few here, but I want to appreciate Christina and her team for hearing the commission and coming back with things that I can approve, that I feel good about. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Any other discussion? Commissioner Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. I would support putting the new technology in the mall and also charging $2 an hour in the mall. That's not what we're voting on here, and I will not vote for this because this vote would allow us to extend the hours, and I'm not ready to do that.
Yep, helpful. I appreciate that. Any other discussion, commissioners? Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
No.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is item J3. City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of a resolution to set an updated parking fee schedule for public parking facilities in the city of Kalamazoo.
Planner Anderson.
Thank you. This is the third and final of our parking proposals. So this is a resolution to change the rates of on-street ramps and surface lots within downtown. So again, these were changes that have always been discussed, that we need to do an update of our rates. They are not aligned with market rates, meaning what private parking facilities are charging. They're not things that we have updated. I think it was 2017 the last time that a rate change came forward. These changes were always meant to be considered with the 90-minute free in the ramp. Sorry. 90-minute free in the ramp. 90 minutes free in the ramp. We moved up the timeline for the 90 minutes free in the ramp because we were just slow in getting some of these other things together, and we heard from downtown businesses that's something that was really important, knowing that these were going to come later. So again, that push-pull between timing and pricing is what, holistically makes a system work. And you think about it not only as those two items, but also the choices that are available on street, surface lots and ramps. They're located in different locations. Some are more convenient than others. Some are less expensive than others. And then a customer can come and make a choice. Again, the goal is to encourage turnover, right? We want to accommodate as many customers as we can in a day. There's also a sweet spot that we can achieve with proper regulation that allows a certain number of spaces each block to be available. And what that does is it gives us, as we're driving down a block, we see that there's available parking, right? And that has a perception of, is there parking downtown or not? And again, this is all about providing choices. So, there's free parking and there's paid parking. The action in front of you tonight, staff, Park Kalamazoo, believe that it is the minimum action necessary to begin to shift us towards fiscal health. Because while this may have started thinking about management and proper health of the system, we know from budget review that we are in a not great space in terms of the fiscal health for the system, and there is a large amount of deferred and coming maintenance. $3.2 million by our account right now of maintenance. The parking system, it is an asset, like our water network, right? There are infrastructure elements that need to be maintained and managed, and staff that needs to be available to maintain and enforce that. And so it's everyday working of the parking system that we need to make sure that we're managing, but also the long-term health of it physically, as well as the books. I have a copy of the table that was provided to you over the weekend, an updated copy of the fiscal health, and so you have an idea of where the system is more broadly. Commissioner Wilson, I'll just answer your question now. I don't know that we can keep the 90 minutes free in the ramp if we don't come up with a balance in the other rates. The 90 minutes free is about $20,000 a month, $240,000 a year. And that's fine as long as you are balancing that out with other changes, which is, again, what was intended for us to do. So I can't say that we'll be able to keep that if we don't until we come up with some sort of balanced fiscal structure. So one of the things that we talked about last time was, okay, so how do we implement this? What does this mean? When the kiosks, the kiosk-style meters are installed on the mall later this month, staff proposes that we use the new hourly rate if approved this evening. So that would go from $1.75 to $2 an hour. No other meter in the city can be changed. The technology is too old. So there will be no other changes to on-street meter pricing until we go through and update the meters. That is something we would like to do, and we need to budget and come up with an implementation plan to do that. The strategic blueprint lays out what that looks like, but knowing that that is one of many budget items that we need to deal with, we have some things to work out for the exact timing, but it would be at least a year from now, if not longer, before we're able to install new meter technology, which will allow a rate change. In terms of the other changes to the surface lots and the ramps after the 90 minutes, assuming that we're able to keep it, we're proposing that these changes go into effect November 1st. This allows us to get through the construction season. So construction wraps up for the most part in the month of October. And so this allows us that breathing room to move forward after that. And I have in front of you the hourly rates, monthly rates, the daily maximum rates for the lots and the ramps, and what they are now and what's being proposed. And so again, those would go into effect November 1. If this body approves the ordinance tonight. Just for reference, I included a map of the parking system because we specifically talk about two lots, Lot 20 and Lot 1. Lot 20 is a small lot across from 400 Rose. It's Rose and Cedar. There's a small lot there that's a public lot. And Lot 1 is over by Bates Alley, Edwards, and Portage, just for your reference. And I am happy to answer any questions related to this resolution.
Thank you, Planner Anderson. Questions? Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Planner Anderson, just a real quick question. What is the capacity for how many overnight parking permits we could sell?
I can't answer that.
No. Okay.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just trying to think of, yeah, that's okay. That's fine.
So, other questions? Comments, thoughts? No questions for Planner Anderson at this point? Vice Mayor Hess?
Sure. Quickly, in the packet, you gave us comparisons with other cities. And it seems that we are well in line with those. And so I think when people go to I don't know if we've been to Chicago lately, but you can't really park in Chicago for a reasonable, for $2. You really can't. And again, but then keeping that 90-minute free in the ramp has got to be key to this whole plan. And I know you've done the research with other cities, and I think Grand Rapids just increased their rates, correct?
They're a bit above us,
Yeah.
for sure.
So, yeah, I think what you've done is wonderful, so thank you.
Seeing no more questions, is there anyone here in the chambers who would like to comment on this particular item, item J3? Seeing no one, commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Decker,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Wilson. Discussion, commissioners. Commissioner Pradel.
Just want to acknowledge that, the recent years, I feel like people have been thoroughly squeezed in every avenue of life. I mean, and I can certainly resonate and understand that it's challenging to digest when you hear decision making to increase rate, even if it is just a quarter. I am in support of this largely because of the forethought that's gone into this with the 90-minute parking and the ramps. You think about downtown, you might drive by and see dozens of spots that are open for 90-minute parking on some of the major streets, but alternatively now there are hundreds of options open in one of the two ramps where you have 90 minutes. And so, I'm pleased that we can still offer options for people so they can, come downtown, participate in activities downtown, and that we can offer that 90 minutes by alternatively raising these rates on other streets. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Other discussion? Vice Mayor Hess.
Sure, just like in the snow clearing discussion, I think there has to be an education of the public by this, like you mentioned before, in the City View, online, on our website, on the parking website. When we talk about Imagine Kalamazoo 2035, there has to be an ongoing conversation among all the people in this city about parking. So to have a clear understanding by the people is key.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hess. Other discussion? All right, seeing none there, I guess, these are always challenging discussions when we talk about increasing rates in one thing or another. That is a responsibility of the city, water rates, for example, and sewer rates. I do appreciate you mentioning, Commissioner Cooney, that, the challenging financial situation that the parking system is in, and it is in essence an enterprise fund is meant to, the users are intended to support the opportunity to park, and that's not the situation we're in right now, which does mean that ultimately it will be everyone in the city of Kalamazoo, including all the people who never come down, who will have the privilege of supporting the parking system downtown through their general fund tax payments. So challenging situation as it relates to all that, and really as it comes down to it in terms of love you Portage, but the real downtown in Kalamazoo County happens to be in the city of Kalamazoo. And there are certain attributes to that downtown experience that are the kinds of things that people like to take advantage of, and also a big economic driver, a wealth driver for the city of Kalamazoo. And we hear about that when Jane Ghosh comes from Discover Kalamazoo and talks about where people visit. And when you're thinking about it, visitors pay those parking rates as well, which helps support our parking system, which is an asset. So here we are. I do want to say that I appreciate that there are smart people on our team that spent a great deal of time thinking about this and really trying to propose a plan that attempts to incorporate best practice thinking and things that I honestly wouldn't even think about myself necessarily when it comes to the broader parking system and how it operates. That said, now's the time to vote. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
No.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next is the opportunity. Planner Anderson, thanks for spending half the night up here in front of us on one topic or another. You, I think, relieved the presence of Director Baker having to be up here, which is a role he often plays. Commissioners, now is an opportunity for commissioner comments. Anybody wants to kick that off this evening? Yes, like you're being first, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. It's not more so of a comment, just a correction on item F1. I just want to have it noted that it's the Brownfield meeting minutes that I'm always reviewing, not the Planning Commission for the 5135 resolution.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Pradle?
Sure. Just want to take a minute, Clerk Borling, so you can hear this and make sure that your team hears this as well. You know, we just got over our primary election, and we have a very, I guess, call it rich election year of a lot of activities that your team is managing. And I continue to be immensely impressed by how your team pulls it off, and pulls it off incredibly well. Everybody from the poll workers that show up at, you know, what time do they show up? Like 6 in the morning and stay till late at night, to your team that just is working around the clock to make sure that every voice counts, that everybody has an opportunity to feel safe and have access to the ability to vote in an election. Thank you to you and your team. It's always really a big joy to show up to your polling location and cast a vote. I actually goofed up this year. I had 3 children with me, and they give those little play ballots, you know, where they're circling bubbles. And so I had 3 children like saying, "Oh, I'm voting for, you know, Mama," or whatever, you know, in this bubble. And I accidentally voted incorrectly and had to spoil my ballot. And so you can imagine that was kind of embarrassing. But again, how your team manages those situations, I just am impressed with them and the work that you do, so thank you.
Thank you.
Also wanted to just really quickly wish my mom a happy birthday. I would normally be spending the evening with her, wishing her a special day, but, you know, city commission business speaks, so here I am. But anyways, happy birthday, Mom. Hope you have a happy birthday.
Other commissioner comments? Yeah, Commissioner Cooney.
I just want to say I appreciate the people that came in the beginning of the meeting talking about the difficulty people have with shelter and the rents being raising the rents all over the city and the homeless people out there. And I know that the city is working really hard on that, and we just have to keep it before us. I think what we can do with the bathrooms, with the water fountains, that's very important. And I think every city in the country is grappling with this. It's a huge problem, and we just have to keep looking at it and seeing to do the best we can with it.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yes, Vice Mayor Hess.
That's it. I was going to address that, but I'll piggyback on what you said, Commissioner Cooney. I want to give a shout out to our community service team of public safety, who actually works with the unhoused, along with social worker Kelsey Harness. So thank you to them for the work they do. Monthly as well, and Commissioner Cooney, you're there too, that the meetings with the unhoused providers, the nonprofits who actually really get down and dirty and do the work with the people who are struggling in our community, and to be there and to listen and to be grateful to them for doing that work. Loaves and Fishes, WMed, the Ministry with Community, the Mission, and so many more that do the work in this community. Yes, the city is a part of a solution, and so I'm just really grateful to all of those doing that work. That said, and then I'll just stay on public safety. I had the chance to do a ride along with Officer Malcolm. Unfortunately, it was scheduled the same day as a shooting happened at Foxridge Apartments. She and I were the only people on patrol in the city of Kalamazoo. And so I appreciate her and what I saw, not only from her, but heard throughout the city was our officers' commitment to their job and to their call and to what it is they mean in the city. We are very blessed to have such a brigade of people willing to do the work on behalf of the people of Kalamazoo. So thank you to all of our officers, especially Officer Malcolm. We were off for 4 weeks, Mayor, and a lot of stuff happened. I was able to attend 2 particular wonderful graduations. The first one was the change of status graduation from Urban Alliance, and that's happening. It happens 4 or 5 times a year. It's an impressive and inspiring program to help people change their status from incarceration to citizenry. And it's very inspiring, and I was really blessed to be able to attend that. And then also the other graduation was the Bridging Opportunities graduation, where 8 youth ended their summer being a part of the staff of Boys and Girls Clubs, and this program, the Bridging Youth Opportunities, is Boys and Girls Clubs, Circuit Court, working with Circuit Court and with Public Safety as well. So all of those folks, all the people working with these 8 youth have turned their lives around as well. So I appreciate that, and it's an inspiring thing, great things happening in our city. And then National Night Out was last week. I appreciated the people. Ethan, Parks and Rec, shout out to you. You were in Fraze Park putting it together in the middle of the afternoon when no one saw what you were doing. Big thanks to Jay Slaby and all of the community policing officers who worked on putting out a great night and great opportunities all throughout the city of Kalamazoo. Really, really appreciate you. And then just lastly, the city of Kalamazoo, congratulations on yet another successful USTA tournament. Several weeks that overlapped with the Olympics, but I think people had a chance to watch some good tennis here in the city of Kalamazoo. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hess. A few things, I guess in no particular order, but one thing I wanted to note, there was, I thought, an article worth reading. I believe it was in the Sunday Gazette featuring Ed Genesis. I don't know if anybody saw that article or not. I would say the key point in that article, which Ed made himself, and he has life experience in this, is interacting with a mother who lost her son to gun violence for a homicide that has not been solved. I think it's been a couple years now, and the heartbreak that she has living with that. Obviously, it's heartbreak enough, but the sense that there's people who know, and people probably who she interacts with, possibly even every day, who know how it happened and know who did it, and for a variety of reasons, through fear or whatever decision making, decide that they can't tell anybody about it, and therefore it is not resolved, and I'm sure she worries perhaps will never be resolved in that way. I mean, it's really, really a challenging article, and I do appreciate that Ed Genesis is doing that work of trying to work with families who have had that experience and try to encourage people in the community to be brave and come forward. That said, something that was profoundly also moving for me is that after the homicide at Fox Ridge, within a couple days, an individual who was picked up, who was charged with felony murder, I believe, and who was presumably at least arrested for the fact that he perhaps was the one who was involved in that murder in the broad daylight up in a parking lot at Fox Ridge. And right away, and I was going to give tons of props to our own public safety department, the video of the arrest of that individual was released virtually immediately. If anyone hasn't seen it, go online, look it up. And obviously an extremely tense situation. There's guns involved. A murder had occurred very recently. and there's a body cam video of our great public safety officers up there to, engage with that person and ask them to turn themselves in. And it's a short clip, but I do not think you could ask for a more professional and humane approach to doing something so challenging, which we have seen over and over again around the country. What human being is not scared in that situation when you go in and someone is armed and perhaps has used that in a way that has ended someone's life? And over again, we hear about shots being fired and someone had a phone in their hand and who knows what. And this was a perfect example of that not occurring. This gentleman did come out of the house and, was arrested by public safety. And as you see the clip, the officer, I think, turns to this young man and says something along the lines of paraphrasing, "You doing okay?" Something like that. And, just in a human way, I'm sorry I'm emotional about it, but this is the antithetical response to the unfortunate kind of responses we've been seeing around the country. This is how we want our great public safety department to work. And I'm not saying there won't be situations where it doesn't go down like that and shots are fired and gunfights occur. I'm not saying that couldn't be in our future and couldn't not happen, but I think it just demonstrated a humanity that builds community trust, which gets me right back to agenesis and that desire to have community members share what they have seen and experienced, and in order to direct people into a justice system. So thank you, Chief, and your team. Please watch that if you haven't. It was very impressive. On a different topic, we have an organization called Global Ties in Kalamazoo. It just reminds me over and over again, and I may say this, I can't remember where I've said it before, but many people that care about community, read a book called Bowling Alone some years ago, maybe it was 10 or 15 years ago, I can't remember that, which basically was kind of predicting the demise of society because no one gets together any longer, right? Bowling leagues are going away, tending rotaries going downhill, whatever. And just seeing that people aren't going to interact with each other anymore. Spend a few days here getting invited to all the kinds of things that people are doing. You literally cannot attend all the events that people are putting hours of volunteer time into. Guys who give, you name it. On and on and on in Kalamazoo. I don't believe that's happening. I honestly do not believe that we're experiencing that bowling alone phenomenon. There are people who care about all kinds of things that are getting together from one end to the other in Kalamazoo. I think it's a natural inclination of human beings, but bless you, everybody who's taking the time to do that. And guess what? One of those organizations in town happens to be Global Ties. And Global Ties, used to be called Colleagues International, is bringing people here from around the world literally every other week. There's crews of people coming in. And we get to meet with them, and a lot of people in Kalamazoo, they do internships, they meet with people. And it's all based on this idea is that, although we may disagree on a vast amount of things, that the only answer for that is to get to know people, not just in Kalamazoo, but in the world as people and building relationships. And I just want to thank Jody Michaels and all the volunteers, board members who are involved with Global Ties on such a a rich presence that happens in the city of Kalamazoo, where literally, I mean, if we so desire, we can sit down and have a conversation and meet with someone who we never would have had an opportunity to meet with before, that lives in a far-flung corner of this world. So I would encourage anyone to be a host. We had, I got to be part of an event where the State Department chose the city of Kalamazoo as one of 2 meeting places, you know, in the country to have a gathering here in the last couple of weeks, you know, and it was basically recognizing the amazing work that's happening in Kalamazoo. And over again, what they hear, you know, when people are coming here from who knows where, they're thinking about, oh, I want to be someplace like New York or LA or someplace you hear about. And they find that when they come to a place the size of Kalamazoo, and they're being hosted by families, they have interactions that they would never have in a big city, and everyone gets put up in a motel, that sort of thing. So that is just one of the many rich opportunities that are occurring in Kalamazoo, you know, kind of helping build the kind of world that we dream we could have, although sometimes it feels like it's slipping away. So it was great to be a part of that and great to be recognized by the State Department for this great work. So that all said, that comes back to us, you know, discussion about things. And there was clear disagreement on a topic tonight, and it may not seem like maybe an important topic. I mean, global ties, other issues we are concerned about parking seems kind of a unimportant thing that you don't want to spend a lot of time as, but just talking and thinking about that is just kind of the busy stuff that people have to do when they live together. Figure out the details and discern, you know, what's the best way to go on it and make a decision that will not necessarily be unanimous. So, thank you. I love you, Kalamazoo. We're adjourned.